Today on Handmade with Barb, we'll be making these beautiful cards with an embossing folder and some inking techniques. For my birthday last month, my mother bought me these 3 Spellbinders cut and embossing folders. For today's card, I will be using the diamond lace embossing folder. This is the side of the card that does the indenting and cutting. I had heard that there's a technique where you can add ink directly to the embossing folder. I thought it'd be fun to give it a try. So I'm using one of my Memento teardrop ink pads. This color is called Lilac Posies, and it's the only pink color that I own. I've taken a sticky note to mask off the card to make sure that middle part didn't get any ink on it. You'll notice I've sped up the video so you don't have to waste any extra time watching me ink my folder. In all, I probably spent maybe a minute and a half inking the folder in live time. All right, it's time to put the paper in the folder, close it up, and see what happens when we press it. I've taken out my die cut machine, and normally when you're using an embossing folder, you use the multi-level platform with 1 or 2 of the flaps up and 2 of the plates. But this folder is thicker than normal since it cuts and embosses. And so I've found that I can do this on my regular magnetic platform with only 1 plate on top and no plate on the bottom. My son wanted to help out, so he's the one cranking the machine. While I have my die cut machine on the table, I'm going to go ahead and cut a hot air balloon and a heart to use for the card. To clean the embossing folder, all I'm using is a wet baby wipe. And the little hearts are never going to be white again, but it doesn't really bother me at all if they're dyed. The little cutouts got stuck in the embossing folder, so I'm just popping those out. I'm going to save them and use some of them as embellishments on the card. So here's what the card looks like. The ink didn't dry as smoothly as I wanted it to, and it also leaked into the middle, which is a little disappointing, but oh well. A lesson I've learned is not to be too picky. Instead of throwing a card out, you might as well go ahead and finish it and see what happens. Usually, I'd say almost always actually, you can find a solution that works. So I decided to take my brush here and add some extra color to it. I'm smashing the bristles together and trying to fill in the little white sunken portions of the card. Now I'm going to ink my hot air balloon, and I had forgotten to bring a block, so I'm just inking it on my surface here. And then I'm going to put the cardstock on top of the balloon and take the ink off the top. I find this works really well, especially with the rubber stamps, because they have good cushion underneath them, and it's easier to line the cutout up exactly where I want it to be than if I was doing it with the paper on the table and the stamp on top. The stamp stuck to my craft mat because I put Tombo's liquid glue on the back of my cling rubber stamps. This helps them stick to the acrylic blocks, and it doesn't leave any residue on the blocks, but apparently on my craft mat it does. Now I'm brushing on some color to the heart, and I'm going to ink up the heart stamp that goes with this die cut. I'm using the same color for both because I like how it looks when you do tone-on-tone stamping. I think I forgot to mention the stamps that I'm using and the 2 die cuts, the hot air balloon and the heart, come from a Stampin' Up set called Lift Me Up. I got this set because I thought it was very versatile. I don't like to invest in sets that aren't going to work for a lot of purposes. And the hot air balloon is something you could put on a baby card, on a birthday card, and surprise, surprise, I'm even using it for a Valentines card. Now that I've taped down the card, it's time to put on my dimensionals. A lot of people use the little foam dots, and I use those too sometimes. But I've found if you buy the thin craft foam at the store, it costs, I think, 25 cents a sheet, and you can even get it on sale a lot of times. And it costs so much less than the little foam razors. This has become my favorite way to put raised accents on my cards. The sheet of foam I'm using today, I actually had ran through my die cut machine and cut out the exact shape of the baubles that I used on my Christmas cards. I don't like to waste anything, so I'm using the leftovers and just cutting them to size. Another reason I like using the thin craft foam is it's thinner than the traditional foam adhesive. If you're building a card up with several layers of cardstock and adding a dimensional, the thinner foam makes the overall card thinner and easier to mill. I'm now using an alcohol marker to draw some lines under the balloon. These are the strings that are going to attach the balloon to the basket. I trimmed a piece of scrap paper down to probably about 3 by maybe 4 inches. This card's a little larger than what I usually make. It's a 6 by 4.5 card. And so I didn't measure the inside, but I believe, like I said, that it is probably 3 by 4 inches. I'm going to tape that down. And then on the bottom, I decided to add some of the hearts that were cut out of the front of the card when I used my embossing folder. When trying to place 3 objects like this and space them by eye, I find that it's easiest to start with the center and to then add the sides. For the inside of the card, I'm using one of the stamps from my Lift Me Up set, and it says "Love is in the air." I didn't have an acrylic block still, so I thought, hey, maybe I can stamp off of my hand. So I inked up the card, or the stamp, and I'm checking it here to make sure it's shiny and inked all over. Now I'm turning it around to be right side up and placing it on the card. And as I pushed it down, I wobbled it, which I didn't realize I was doing and didn't mean to. And so it left a mark underneath the words. Oh well, mistakes can be an opportunity for embellishment. So I decided to pull out my pink alcohol marker again and just trace the line that it left from the stamp and create just a little extra embellishment. For this card, I thought it would be fun to decorate the envelope as well. So I went and grabbed an acrylic block, and I'm using the same heart stamp that I used on the front of the card. I'm going to place it on the corner of the envelope, and then I'm going to use the same color of ink and brush it on the envelope, and this will create that tone-on-tone effect again, with the heart standing out nicely and just a little bit of color around the edges. And I really liked how the envelope turned out. After finishing the envelope, I went back to the card and still just didn't quite like how the background looked. So I took my alcohol marker and started to color in the places that should have had ink on them, on the indents of the embossed impression. But this marker was brighter than I'd realized, and it made the card look quite intense. So I decided to try another method, just for fun. Originally, this is how I was going to ink the card, until I saw the idea of putting the ink on the embossing folder. So I decided to go back and I embossed another panel, and I've masked it off here to keep the inside white, and I'm just dragging very gently the ink pad across the card, and it's making the raised portions of it turn pink. I've sped the video up again, so you don't have to watch me ink the entire card in real time, but it only took about a minute, maybe 2. The card is fully inked now, and I'm keeping the video fast as I go ahead and restamp the balloon and add the heart again. I was not able to find my heart die cut. I misplaced it by accident. It's probably just on the floor beside me. So instead of die cutting the heart, this time I stamped it and cut it out with scissors. Here's the 2 cards side by side. I thought they could use a little something else, and I had some pink sticky embellishments, so I went ahead and added those in the center of each heart on both of the cards. And now they're done. I personally like the card on the left better, but I'll definitely use both of them. Which one do you like better? These were a lot of fun to make, and I hope you enjoyed seeing a couple of different ways to ink with embossing folders. Thanks for watching Handmade by Barb, and don't forget to leave a thumbs up if you like this video.